Good evening, everyone. We're here for City Council meeting, and it is Monday, November 19th, 2018, Thanksgiving week. We'll start the meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Solomon. Modrick. Nordstrom. Drew. Scott. Drury. Laurenti. Roberts. Armstrong. Lewis. We have a quorum.
Okay. And now we'll have the invocation by Bishop Troy Carr, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear God, during this time of Thanksgiving, we want to thank you for all the things you have blessed us with: food, clothes, health, family, and the list can go on. We like to praise God from whom all blessings flow. God, I ask that you would bless our mayor, give him the strength and courage to lead our city in the ways of righteousness. God, I ask that you bless our city council members, lead them to make decisions that are according to your word. And Lord, I ask that you protect those who are most vulnerable in our community. God bless the city of Rapid City, the state of South Dakota, and God, we ask that you would bless the United States of America. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now on to the adoption of the agenda. This is a time when the council may adopt the agenda as written, or they can make amendments to it. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion to adopt the agenda as written by Darla Drew and a second by Becky Drury. All in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, item number 1, under awards and recognitions, we'll go back to Bishop Troy Carr.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members, for this opportunity to speak. Back in March of this year, the eldest son of one of our families passed away. What made a difficult situation even more challenging was the fact that there were violent threats to disturb the funeral by another son, the deceased brother. With this safety concern, I called Chief Jigaris and asked if there could be a police presence outside of the church during the funeral. And without a moment of hesitation, Carl told me that he'd make a phone call and someone would give me a call back. In less than 24 hours, an officer, and I apologize that I don't remember his name, but would you please tell him thanks again. In less than 24 hours, an officer called me, and we had a plan to protect everyone at the funeral. And so on behalf of Faith Temple Church and our grieving family, I want to publicly and for the record thank Chief Jigaris and the officers of the Rapid City Police Department for living the mission statement of community service and integrity. I wanted to come and make this statement publicly because I feel that the men and women of the Rapid City Police Department don't get enough thanks for the work that they do in our community. And I truly wish that there was more that I could do to show my appreciation to the department for being there for our church in our time of need. And so the best that I can say is thank you, and thank you. And I'm used to hosting meetings at the church, and I assume I'm not allowed here, but if I was able to, I'd make a motion for the police department to get an increase in your income, in your pay. So if I could, I would, but since I can't, just know that I would want to. Amen. Thank you again for this time.
Okay, and on a similar note, we're going to go to Alderwoman Becky Drury for a moment of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mayor. This is nice timing that the police department was called out, because my kudos tonight go to the fire department and our emergency response crew. Approximately a week and a half ago, I was with a friend and we were at a large event and she became ill. We went to the back of the room. I lost her. The next thing I knew, we had several paramedics helping her, assisting her. And I was so impressed. I just stood there and held her coat and did nothing but watch. And the care, the professionalism, they knew what to do. They were calm. And her eyes are rolling back in her head, and I'm thinking, panic, panic. And nope, they're not panicking. And I just want to tell them again publicly, much as the bishop did, that thank you. You don't get enough pats on the back, and then when it does happen, we need to appreciate you. And I just wanted to give you a shout out again, Chief, and your crew, for just the kindness, the care, and the professionalism that you showed my friend, and that I'm sure you show people day in and day out, and we just don't see it. Thank you very much.
Now, on to general public comment. A time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at this meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. We have one speaker request for general public comment, and that is Mr. David Smith. And I should note, you have, in case you haven't been here before, you have 3 minutes. There's a little timer here, just like your traffic control device. Green, yellow, and red.
Excellent. My name's Dave Smith. I live on 12th Street. About a month and a half ago, there was some stakes driven into the hill. And in that process, my wife and I and the other people in the community realized that there might possibly be some building going on up there. I would like to remind the city that 20 years ago, on September 17th, this hill had a horrific landslide. And in that process, FEMA became involved and Maxim Technologies became involved, and there was a geotechnical study done on it, and they rehabbed the hill. And the hill has been in pretty good shape since the rehabilitation. My main concerns now are I don't understand why this particular piece of property was not red flagged so the city would understand that there was more involved than just issuing a building permit. Now, I don't want to begrudge the gentleman that it's a beautiful site, and I understand that progress happens and so forth, but my concerns are if something happens again or this contributes to the unstableness of the hill, what do I do? There was a certain amount of money that was invested in the hill in the first place, and as it stands right now, my biggest investment is my home. If I was to lose that, I don't know how I would replace it. And I left each one of you a letter, and I would certainly take any comments. I'm concerned about the safety of the hill now and in the future. And with the size of this home, there's a certain amount of down pressure or weight that will be exerted on the hill. And most of my concerns are in the letter that I left with each one of you. And that picture pretty much tells you what that looked like. Everything below the dark shadow there in the top tree all sloughed off, and the majority of it went to the north. And I have a raft of pictures what it looked like and how it was. So, like I said, I don't begrudge the gentleman at all about what, I mean, like I said, it's a terrific view. So, I just wanted the city and the city council to know that. And if there's any information that I might be able to either obtain or be kept abreast of or understand the project more, I didn't see any of the studies done on this, and that would be appreciated. And if there are any questions, I would certainly entertain them.
Well, thank you, Mr. Smith. We'll forward your letter to the Public Works Department and get some comment from them. I appreciate you coming in tonight.
You guys all have a great holiday. I think you're doing a good job, too. Most of the time. Thank you again.
That shouldn't be funny, should it? Okay, that ends our general public comment. Now on to non-public hearing items, items 2 through 34A. We'll open public comment on that, and we have one speaker request for item 20 from Jeff Loggy.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Loggy with Black Hills Home Builders. Item number 20 has to do with fees, and honestly, we haven't taken a position on that portion as it's presented during the red line, but I felt this was the appropriate topic to talk about fees. I know there's been some issues in the past in regards to building permit fees, and caught wind, perhaps this will be up here in a journal article published last week, mentioned they will be brought forward again, or the intention of Public Works is, or not Public Works, but Community Development is to bring this issue forward. If any of the issues come up, I'd like you to direct the questions towards me. I have authority here from Black Hills Home Builders to speak on the issue, as well as I will be the president of Black Hills Home Builders in 2019. So if there's any other questions regarding that, please contact us or let me know, and I can come up and speak on the issues.
Okay, thank you. And that concludes the public comment portion. Now on to consent items, items 4 through 26. We'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Could we pull item 20, please?
Okay. Lisa Modrick.
Item 11.
11. Any other items to be taken from the consent calendar? If not, can we have a motion to approve the consent items with the exception of item 11 and 20? Motion to approve by Solomon and a second by Roberts. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. On to item 11. Authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign Amendment 1 to Professional Services Agreement between the City of Rapid City and Renner Associates, LLC, for Tower Court stormwater outfall stabilization in the amount of $46,793.25. And we'll go to Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask Dale Tech a question on this item?
Please.
Thank you. Now, we had some conversation on this when we were approving the first round of this at the amount that we came in at, and obviously we were at $31,730.90, and one of the areas of my concern was the very unstable hillside, of which we're trying to protect the infrastructure on with the water and the sewer. And you had mentioned we needed to move forward with this and that this would accomplish that, but now we've got a change order of $46,793.25, and it does state budgeted to equal $78,524. Can you explain why we ended up with such a large difference, and where are we headed with this very slippery, sliding hillside of which our infrastructure is on?
Sure, that's a great question.
Thank you.
This is very typical of all of our construction design projects. Typically, when we hire a design consultant, we also look at the construction side of things. So when we move forward with a design project and then ultimately bid it and award it to a contractor, many times we hire that design consultant to do the construction administration of the project because they are intimately familiar with the project. So the bulk of this is for those services. So it's additional services. We do this on virtually every design project where we hire the consultant for design and construction services.
So I see that it's a budgeted item, and we're on a change. Do we anticipate, because of the, what I would imagine, and we're going to have some pretty extensive geotech going into there, another change order coming? And what is the budgeted amount that we have just to get this authorization to move forward with Renner?
This is not a change order. This is an amendment to a professional services contract. As I said, we do these frequently. We don't anticipate there being another amendment to this particular consultant. Certainly when the project gets ready to bid, we'll have a cost estimate to know what the anticipated costs are for the project.
And is it going to have as well, I had to appreciate what Mr. Smith was going through, what's going on that hillside on both sides of the instability before we put this in? Is that part of Renner's project, or is it just going straight line like what we're seeing on our link?
With this particular project, we have a water line that goes up this very steep hill, and due to the nature of the movement of the hill, we need to protect that water line. Certainly, we are going to be focused on the area right at the water line, but we'll be looking at areas very near it to make sure that whatever fix is in order
Yes.
permanently stabilizes that slope.
Very good. That's what I was hoping to hear, and we want to make sure we have that on the record for the city. Thank you.
Okay, item 11, there's no motion on the floor.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Scott, second by Laurenti. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And item 20 is to approve resolution number 2018-084, a resolution amending certain fees to be charged for 2019 for various licenses, permits, and applications. We'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may make a motion to approve this item first, and if I get a second, retain the floor.
Second.
Second by Darla Drew, and go ahead.
Thank you. A question for, let me start with Ken Young, if I may.
Yes.
Ken, could you address some of the issues that we've been hearing about? And I've only received one phone call on this issue about raising the permit fees. And could you address some of the things that are taking place in this and why we're having to do the adjustments?
Sure. First of all, let me clarify, we are not raising permit fees at this time. Permit, in other words, relating to building permit.
Yep.
We are looking at fees for planning, subdivisions, and zoning application fees. So over the last year, we've looked at our level of effort that the planning staff puts towards reviewing and preparing applications for further review by Planning Commission and City Council. It has become quite apparent that we are charging no fee in some instances for applications that do require a fairly substantial level of effort. And in comparing those particular items that are not currently being charged a fee, there's no reasonable offer of understanding as to why we don't charge a fee on one particular application, but we do on others when the level of effort of review is very similar. So with that, may I also mention that without trying to do too much all at once, I do believe most of our fees as currently constituted, especially and including those that are not being proposed to be increased at this time, are too low. Especially as we look at the level of effort that is put in not only by our planners but by our planning technicians involving agenda preparation and noticing, and there's a very substantial level of effort going in on this, And also, as we compare with other communities of a similar size or larger, these fees are substantially lower. So I think there are many reasons that support why some of these fees need to be instituted from zero to something, and perhaps in other instances that we charge more.
Mr. Mayor, another follow-up question.
Yes.
Mr. Young, outside of the factors that other municipalities use for a guidelines or whatever their permit fees are and services offered, outside of that, is the primary reason why we're raising the fees is to accommodate staff time or the time that it takes to do a process for a permit?
Absolutely. Again, if we're going to charge any fees for any level of work that we offer in our services, then we ought to be fair and equitable in all of the application services that we provide.
And one more question, if I may. Just, is there any documentation or any data that supports your claims on this? I'm hoping that you do, because I feel that a lot of these fees need some, not just subjective adjustments, but have we got some sound rationale?
Right, so I have looked at, and I've got, I'm sorry I don't have it here with me tonight, but it's a real basic review of the estimated average level of effort that's being put in by staff on this, times the amount of hours and the hourly rate on average that is looked at, with not just one person, but those that would commonly be involved with that. In almost all instances, and I can provide that if anybody would like, in almost all instances, it shows that we are substantially charging less than what we should if we're trying to meet the level of effort that is being put into it.
And for the mayor's point of view, I recall some of the comments that we've gotten from the public saying that we'd rather see the user fees go up instead of property taxes. And I think this is one more supportive piece of evidence that shows that we're just complying with what the citizens are requesting. Thank you, Mayor. If you want to make any other comments on that.
Well, that is true. The Citizen Survey 2017, which is a scientifically valid survey of the citizens and of the City Council, both identify code enforcement, building services, land use, planning specifically as the last thing they would choose to have the general fund subsidize. So they want those things logically to be paid for by the users. And that's kind of the foundation behind the effort to make these charges realistic and appropriate. Okay, going to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I direct a question to Ken Young, please?
Yes.
Mr. Young, you know, you made a statement in there about kind of comparing to other communities. Mm-hmm. I am a little concerned about that. I do, by the way, I do agree that I'd rather pay fees than put taxes on everybody and have users pay fees for the services they use, but the only reason I can personally justify raising a fee is that the cost of the service warranted it. And you said we have a report for that, which is great. But I actually I don't really care too much about what other communities do, just because they don't have the same pricing that we do. I only care about what it costs our staff to do the work that needs to be done, and charge no more, no less. I mean, I think that's the kind of the thing you're trying to get to, I hope. It sounds like you're trying to get to. But I'm not sure I'm going to approve this tonight, because I'd love to see that staff time report in order to justify it. And last time we had the rounds of fees, I asked for justifications, and I kind of, probably annoyingly so, asked various directors, you know, what's the justification? Is it because of staff time? And if you say yes, then I can say, okay, well, I understand that, because it's all about supporting the cost of service. So would you, if we vote no, and I'm not sure what the rest of the council is going to do tonight, but if for some reason it does go down, or maybe continued, just so that we can have an opportunity to view that, because you have the most substantial requests in here, from TIFs to annexations, and it may be, very well be warranted, but I want to make sure that we have our data first before we make a decision. I hate making a decision just without the data and just kind of Richie said it, be subjective about it. I'd rather kind of see it first, so just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Darla Drew.
There we go. Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Ken Young also.
Yes.
So Ken, it's been said that actually the fees that are being paid do more than pay for the services, but actually some of them go back into the general fund because we have so much more money left over after we've paid all of our people and all our staff time. Can you please address that particular concern?
Well, I just think that's a fallacy. I think there's, we definitely are subsidizing the whole effort by either not charging a fee or charging much less than we should. If indeed we're trying to cover the cost of effort through the user fee, not through the general fund. And again, as I pointed out earlier, and I'm happy to provide that background information, no problem. Either way it goes tonight, I will do that. But there will be many instances where you can show through my calculations that we are undercharging on most of our fees.
Yeah, I get that, but I'd like to have one more question of Ken, if I may. So if we would charge more, do you think that the people that are pulling these permits, the builders, would they get better service? Would we be able to order, maybe hire some more employees? Would would we be able to turn around the projects a little faster for the people that are building?
Perhaps we can say we'll continue to try to provide good customer service. I don't know if we're looking to cover additional staff hours or additional effort. I think the effort that's being expended is sufficient, if not excellent, and I don't know that that's the point. I think the point is, if indeed we're going to pay for service through user fees, then we ought to make that more justifiable.
Okay, thank you.
And for clarification, I believe the item that Alderwoman Drew brought up was the defense to raising building permit fees during the budget session.
Right.
And not specifically about any of the fees in the resolution.
Okay.
Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to continue this item for the next, for 1 month, City Council, whatever date that would be.
Okay, we have a motion, but he's asking for a substitute motion.
Substitute motion, excuse me. Whatever.
To the second meeting in December?
Second meeting in December, please.
Okay, so the motion is substitute motion is to postpone this item to the second City Council meeting in December, and the seconder is Steve Laurenti, correct? Yes.
And I do that in the spirit of, there's obviously some people up here have some questions, and if this needs to get passed, then we need to make sure people are voting on what they know what they're voting on. I'm 100% sure I can speak, hopefully, a little bit for Parks and Rec, and just know that when things, the prices go up there, it's because the price of doing business goes up over there. They're more or less an enterprise fund, and they don't have any other way of raising revenue other than usership. And so if the price of chlorine goes up or the price of chemicals for the pools go up, they have to cover that somehow. And I'm comfortable with voting for that particular increase. However, there's obviously other things out there that people are concerned about, and I would say that, just because the public wants us to do it through fees, if we can't legally do that, and I don't know if we can or not, I'm just going by the different communications I've seen back and forth. So if we can legally do it, that's one thing, but just I don't want to be voting on something I'm not sure about 100% on that, in that regard. So that's my spirit of my motion. So hopefully we'll have another month to kind of get some more information and make hopefully an informed decision. Thank you.
So for clarification, in the next 30 days, you'd be looking for some supplemental information from planning specifically, or an across the board for every? I
would say, I think the questions are mostly with the planning committee, or the planning, proposed planning fees, as I understand it, is the council from the information I'm getting from my fellow council people. Does that sound about right, guys, down there? That's your concerns, Jason? Mr. Solomon?
My preference is just a simple justification for every fee increase.
Okay.
So if it's parks, then cost
fine.
of goods, that's all I need.
Okay.
We just
well,
need
that's fine then.
justifications.
I was just doing it as an effort, so everybody's not just up here voting something down because they don't understand what's going on, because I understand not voting for something you don't completely understand, and it's better to have more information, and everybody's better informed, and then they know what they're voting on, and we can go on their merry way. Thanks.
Lisa Modrick.
Thank you. May I ask Ken Young a question?
Yes.
Thank you. So with what is under planning and subdivision and zoning, and one of the questions I have, you might be able to simply answer it, is that we're going from a number of line items that had a no fee at all, and then had placed, not even a modest fee, but in some cases a $250 application fee. Have we had some kind of a surge, or is there, what's triggering, or why? I'm going to ask you this. Why in the past was it a no-fee line item, and suddenly we have to jump it that high?
Well, that's a good question. Of course, you know I've only been here a little more than a year, so I can't speak to the past history, but I can say that I was surprised that we weren't charging a fee on some of these applications. So in my mind, the larger question is, why were we not, as you mentioned, why were we not charging a fee when we do have a level of effort here? So if the philosophy is we should cover that through user fees, then there should be a fee there. And when we look at the level of effort and compare that to what's happening with similar applications that do have a fee, then it seems to be a good guideline for what we should do.
And then it's increased because it is outside of what we've already approved as far as budget goes, then goes back into your budget, because then it kind of attaches here with what Councilwoman Drew said, is then where do we go with it? Do we get to move this into a faster, streamlined process because time is money? And that affects everybody, both on the city side as well as our partnerships with our developers. How can we get the best bang for everybody's buck on this when this happens?
Well, I think it's been shown quite clearly as we do our budgeting process that we're struggling to meet the level of effort in our budget right now. And so that causes us to take a deeper look at, well, why are we having a shortfall? Why is this a struggle? Well, when we look at our fees and we determine that there's a gap in some of those areas, then I think there's part of the answer.
So perhaps when it comes back around to us in a month from now, you'll be able to show where this is at, how that value added is going to attach to the fee process, so we have an understanding. I think you said you've got some documents that are probably going to support it, and I think that will allow us to make a better judgment here, because it's the right thing for us to do if we do any increase at all, to make sure it's good in partnership and it works for everybody. And I don't believe we've got to enterprise this out in some way. We do have to have a recovery and then a return on the investment for our developers. So I'm looking forward to the information you're going to put out, and I thank you for
If
that.
I may, I'd just like to add that we are not an enterprise fund, and if we were, then perhaps we might be able to justify bringing all those funds back into our program and then see how we could increase or adjust however we might need to the services at that point. But we are not, and so all of those funds do go into the general fund.
Okay, just a reminder for everyone, the motion on the floor is to postpone this 30 days, which means we don't have to litigate it here tonight. Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That gets rid of some of the comments I had. But I just wanted to speak briefly about support of the motion. I don't think we have enough information. I'm one of those people as well that wants to see some justification. We just saw some movement during the budget hearings to increase fees, and the council soundly said no to that. So I think we just want to know. And I'm hoping, Mr. Mayor, if I ask community planning a question here. Are you able to, and I just want to not necessarily caution my colleagues, but voice concern to make sure that we voice tonight what information we need, what do we need and who from, so that in a month from now we can dispel with this particular subject, whether we vote for it or against it. But I think we want to make sure tonight that we ask for the information that we need to make the decision we need to make, instead of coming back here a month from now saying, well, I didn't get this and I didn't get that. So we have a month. And I think you might want to voice tonight and after the meeting and with staff. I'm sure they'll work with us to provide the information we need so that we can make a informed, intelligent decision. So on that, will we be able to get the information that we need? I think what I'm hearing is justification. That doesn't really tell me exactly what Mr. Solomon needs, Alderman Solomon needs. I mean, to me, justification is a pretty broad stroke. So to me, what I would like to see is why, and I get it, that we're going from 0 to 250, and that's what new leadership does. It comes in and assesses things in an intelligent manner and asks questions. Why aren't we charging for this? Because we're spending staff time doing it. That is a sound decision, so I applaud that. I think what I would like to see is, where is the department now? Are we not paying for these services? I mean, we're charging, like I think Alderwoman Modrick, sorry, I'm losing my mind. I'm thinking about Thanksgiving right now and the turkey and the dressing, so my mind's not quite on this work, so I'm coming back. But so, you know, that's what I would like to see, is some justification as to why all of a sudden, and I get why, but is there a shortage of revenue to cover the services? To me, that would be my first question. Do we have a shortage of revenue to cover the services that we're providing for these different things? And in totality, because if we weren't charging anything, you would think that this would have come up before, but sometimes management isn't where it needs to be. So I appreciate your efforts there. I just want to see some of that justification as well. Are we really short in this particular area as far as what we're providing to the customers that come to community planning for platting and those types of things? I see some of the corrections and omissions charges and fees that we never had before. So I'm looking for a little more detail, and I'm hoping my colleagues will voice tonight what they need to see so that we can make a good decision. I yield.
Yeah, Mayor, if I may. I think, you know, it's really going to be simple information that I'm providing. It's going to show the level of staff effort for how much time is being expended and the approximate amount of people and hourly wages that are being paid to come up with where we ought to be reimbursed for our level of effort, and where we're falling short, I suppose, is what we can show. But again, I'd like to emphasize we are not an enterprise fund, so we can't say that, no, we're not receiving enough back out of the general fund to do that, because those are kind of, you know, funds that are all mixed together. So I can't necessarily show that, but I can show you our level of effort and what's not happening there.
Okay. Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to remind the City Council as well that we've got a month for staff to provide the, some more supplemental information as far as why the rate increases are being proposed. But when we meet again in a month's time, we can also remove any, you know, one or two, if there's just a couple items for further discussion, and then we can pass the rest of the rates and take those other ones. So we're not looking for a totality pass all or pass none. We can pull one or two items off if they still need further investigation. But I'm hoping within a month's time, as much of the council members also had set up here, I think we'll get our answers between now and then. It is the holiday season. So we all have to kind of bear down and work a little bit harder because our minds do wander. Alderman Laurenti, I'm with you there. So, but I think we can get this done in 30 days. Thank you.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you. And just for the point of clarification, thank you, Alderman Laurenti. I think Ken Young referenced the staff time report, so that's what I was asking for. But I think it's just good practice, just a simple justification whenever, you know, just a column on the spreadsheet. So from the parks, it'll be, you know, for the graveside, it could be, you know, cost of mowing lawns or something like that went up. That's, we don't need every little detail from every little rate. We just want to make sure that it's just a very general comment so we know why. For Mr. Young's items, since they're a little more dramatic, I think we're asking for more information, but a lot of it is covered. It is not an enterprise fund, and that's a great point. And it is covered often in the general fund, but it's good for us to justify such a drastic change. And I think that's that one we're looking for, probably a little bit more information, any seems like he already has it in hand. So I don't think it's going to be very difficult for any of these directors just to put a quick justification statement, and if it's drastic, perhaps some data behind it, and then we'll make a decision. I yield. Thank you.
Motion on the floor is to postpone for a month to the second meeting in December. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Takes us through consent, and now on to non-consent items. Nope, wait a minute. Are we lost? Oh, 20, yeah, you're right. I'm right. Items 27 through 34A, open public comment. We have one speaker request from, sorry if I butcher this, Sherry West Twittero. Okay. On item 27.
Basically, I kind of would like to go back to the beginning of this meeting, and this is a thanks to community development and the planning people. We have lived, George has been in this house for like 40-some years, and the rezoning request that we have here is basically to allow us to be able to sell it under today's markets and with today's zoning. We got zone general commercial between owners, and it didn't matter for financing back in the 70s. It matters a lot now. And so we would just request, John Green worked very hard on prepping this, and I really feel like the department worked well with us on trying to come up with something that would allow us to get out of our current non-conforming use of the land. Thank you.
Thank you. And that'll close our public comment, and we'll go to item number 27 under ordinances. First reading, Ordinance 6290, an ordinance amending Section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by George Twittero and Sherilyn West Twittero for a rezoning request from General Commercial District to General Agricultural District for property generally described as being located at 4480 Mount Rushmore Road. Go to Amanda Scott.
Well, I was going to make that a motion to approve.
Okay, we have three motions.
And then I just had a comment, Mayor.
Motion was by Solomon, second by Laurenti. Go ahead.
Thank you. So with the motion to approve, I did stream the Planning Commission meeting, and I just wanted to give a shout out to the discussion item. You presented it very well. The Planning Commissioners asked excellent questions, and I think this whole history of this piece of property was well outlined at the Planning Commission. So just wanted to make sure that everybody knew you were very eloquent tonight, but there was a much deeper discussion at the Planning Commission, and so this was a very well vetted item. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion for approval for 27. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 28, second reading ordinance 6289 regarding supplemental appropriation number 7. Motion to approve by Nordstrom. Second by Laurenti. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to alcoholic beverage license application renewals for 2019, and these are items 29 through 34. And as long as the police chief doesn't indicate there's some issue with these, I believe we can handle 27 through 34 with one vote, or 29 through 34, sorry.
Second.
Motion to approve by Laurenti, second by Drury. And this is for approval of items 29 through 34. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now, on to item 34A under appeals. This is a license appeal. Is Robert Yonner here? Chief, is this one of your licenses, or do you know?
It is, and I don't see him here. But I do know that he went to finance on Friday and indicated that he would be here.
Okay, well, the appellant is not in the house tonight, so what is your wish on item 34A? Okay, motion to deny by Lewis and a second by Drew. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now on to public hearing items, items 35 through 43. There's no speaker request for these items, so we'll go to consent public hearing items 35 through 41. Does the council have a motion?
Move to
Darla Drew with a motion and Amanda Scott with a second. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us on to non-consent public hearing items, starting with item 42. Second reading, ordinance 6280, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by City of Rapid City for a rezoning request from no-use district to medium-density residential district for property generally described as being located north of Seeger Drive, east of 143rd Avenue, west of Dias Avenue. Motion to approve by Scott and a second by Nordstrom. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 43, second reading ordinance 6286, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Hague Gomez LLC for a rezoning request from general agricultural district to medium-density residential district for property generally described as being located north of the intersection of Seeger Drive and Mall Drive.
Move to approve.
Two motions to approve. One of them is a second by Drury. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 44 is the bill list, and we'll go to Finance Officer Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $6,832,239.32.
Motion to approve by Laurenti, second by Solomon. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn and a second. Any objection? We are adjourned. Thank you.